There's been a reported case of observers being turned away from a polling station as Zimbabwe goes to the polls. And a 57-year-old man's been shot and killed in Grassy Park on the Cape Flats. I'm Richard Brooks. There's been a reported case of observers being turned away from a polling station as Zimbabwe goes to the polls. However, voting seems to be going smoothly in most centres, with long queues in Harare since early this morning. Zanele Buthelezi has more.
There has been reports of 2 observers from the Zimbabwe Election Support Network who've been denied access in 2 stations. The reasons for this have not been reported. Polling stations opened at 7 a.m. with queues already visible way before they opened this morning. The first few voters have expressed excitement about being able to exercise their rights. They say they are voting for a better Zimbabwe. But this was not the case for one woman who could not be found on the voters' roll. She voiced her frustration at having spent hours before the voting station opened, only to find out that she's not on the voters' roll. She has been referred to another voting station. Zanele Buthelezi, SABC News, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe.
A 57-year-old man's been shot and killed in Grassy Park on the Cape Flats, and his house petrol bombed. Police would not confirm whether the house was a suspected drug den. The police's Tembi Nkosi Kinana says no arrests have yet been made. He says they are probing the motive for the attack.
It's alleged that a group of about 5 to 10 men had a quarrel which led to the shooting of a 57-year-old owner of the house. The victim died at the scene and his house was set alight, allegedly with a petrol bomb. The police are investigating a case of murder and arson.
Judgment is expected in the Western Cape High Court today in an application by 17 schools fighting closure in the province. The application was brought after Provincial Education Minister Donald Grant decided to close the schools last year. His department has cited dwindling numbers and poor performance as reasons for the decision. The schools were granted a temporary reprieve by the court to stay open pending a review process. The United Nations has given rebels in the eastern DRC 48 hours to disarm around the city of Goma. It's warned that force will be used against the M23 rebels if they don't. A UN intervention brigade of 3,000 troops, including a South African contingent, wants to establish a security zone around Goma. UN commander in the DRC, General Carlos Cruz.
The M23 has used indiscriminate fire, included by heavy weapons, resulting in civilian casualties. The M23 has also targeted UN installations with its fire.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says Palestinian and Israeli negotiators have reached agreement on some technicalities. Peace talks began in Washington yesterday. Both sides have apparently been given certain assurances. Mel Frickberg has more.
Kerry said the objective is to reach a final status agreement after 9 months. According to a senior Israeli official, the U.S. administration gave the Israeli and Palestinian negotiating teams letters of assurance on Tuesday, the contents of which remain classified. It is believed, however, that the letters clarify that negotiations are to be carried out on the basis of the 1967 borders, with land swaps relating to the reality on the ground for a future Palestinian state. Israel is also to be recognized as a Jewish state, and Palestinian refugees must return to a future Palestinian state. Mel Frickberg, SABC, Ramallah.